So let's talk about why the North is at the top. Because did you know that some people had it facing the bottom on the map? Well, you think about it, anywhere that you are on the globe, up can be relative to whatever up is to you. Nothing wrong with adopting conventions, but it's something to know why sometimes. So, right here it says the MacArthur map also makes us wonder why we are so quick to assume that Northern Europeans were the ones who invented the modern map, and decided which way to hold it. Because in the first place, and what they're saying is that, the Europeans wanted to show themselves at the top, so they made the map up at the top. So we just try to accredit it to white supremacy and stuff like that. It says Eurocentrism, our eagerness to invoke Eurocentrism displays a certain bias of its own, since in fact the North's elite cartographic status owes more to the Byzantine monks and the Mohorocan J.E. Little Hat people than it does the Englishmen. So what it's saying is those people who control the hip hop record labels and all the other stuff, the media, they're the ones who actually are the ones who adopted these conventions of putting the North where it is. This is nothing inevitable or intrinsically correct, not in geographic, cartographic, or even philosophical terms, about the North being represented as up, because up on a map is a human construction, not a natural one. Some of the very earliest Egyptian maps show the South as up, presumably equating the Nile's northward flow from the force of gravity. And there was a long stretch in the Mediterranean in the medieval era when most European maps were drawn with something on the top of my things in the way. But what I want to get at right there is notice the Egyptians and how they draw the map south, and they based it on the way the Nile was flowing, and they called that had to be a gravitational force. And when you think about that, that could be the Mississippi River as well. That's why we really call, some of us say, the Nile River is the Mississippi River, which is the river that flows in from the Gulf and the ocean, and it hits all interiors of the United States and branches off through all kind of areas. And here's some of the maps here. Hold on, let me put myself on so I can point. I believe this right here is going to be your Africa, and this is Asia, and this is Europe. That's like your Italy and your Paris and all that fuckery. Spain on that end. So they used to make the map with the north facing south, Africa facing that way. And there's another map where I think it changed, or really I think it's because they flipped the paper, but it used to, but I think that's Europe and that's Africa, but it used to be represented south. Right here, you get an idea of the first use of the compass. And the circular pattern really reminds me of it being based off of the zodiac. And I'll show you that on other maps like this super old map that has the zodiac written here. I'm really fascinated with these old maps. But to read below here, it says members of the Italian cartographic school preferred to mark north with a hat or embellished arrow, while their equally influenced colleagues from the Spanish ruled island of Majorca used an elaborate rendering of Polaris, the North Star. These men, who formed the Majorcan cartographic school, also established a number of crucial mapping conventions of the era, including coloring the Red Sea bright red and drawing the Alps with the great giant chicken foot. Among other hints of the school's predominantly little hat people membership, right here, so I can't say it, was the blah 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 prominent. My thing's in the way. Well, the dude's name was Compass Little Hat Person. So basically, what I want you to take from this is a lot of the current conventions of what we take for with these maps were put together by the same people who control the hip hop industry, who control, media and all kind of other stuff. And this part of this article really kind of made it come to light because I was like, why do we say that a compass faces north? Technically, a compass faces a gigantic force of a gigantic magnetic force, and what we call that north, south, east, or west is really still kind of relative to where, it's kind of arbitrary what they say. But right here it says, but this is the only part of the explanation. The arrow of the compass can just as easily point south, since the magnetized metal needle simply aligns with the Earth's magnetic field, with a pole at each end. Indeed, the Chinese supposedly referred to their first compass magnets as south, pointing stones. Crucially, the Chinese developed the convention before they began to use the compass for navigation at sea. By the time Europeans adopted the compass, though, they were already experienced in navigating with the reference of the North Star, the one point in the heavens that remains fixed anywhere in the northern hemisphere. So when you think about that, they can use that North Star. Doesn't necessarily mean it's north. It just means it's a star that's in a fixed position, and we can use it to base our directions off of. And whether it's north or south is still relative, or whatever. And the last part about it says the North's position was ultimately secured by the beginning of the 16th century, around the 1500s, thanks to Ptolemy, with another European discovery that, like the New World, others had known about for quite some time. Ptolemy was a Hellenic cartographer from Egypt whose work in the 2nd century AD laid out a systematic approach to mapping the world. So, don't get me wrong. I do believe that it's a good thing to have some type of convention so that way, our GPS systems can work. We can all go the same directions. Ain't nobody just crashing into each other, things of that nature. But still, it makes you wonder, why did these people decide to make it the way that they chose, And like I said, I'm just really fascinated with these old maps, especially when I found some that show like the zodiac on them. So it's like you have these zodiac symbols. I think that might be Scorpion and things of that nature, Taurus, the bull, and it was just like, man, I don't know what that is right there. Maybe some latitudinal, reference, manifest or whatever. And this right here, but it just amazes me, the amount of intricacies that have gone into this map making process over the years, man. So there's not a whole lot to take away from this. It's just the fact that, our north and south shit could just be based upon whatever other people say, but regardless, it's still not a bad thing.